This is a great offering from Bachmann. You could imagine this with several other 4-car units going up to make quite an impressive train on your layout. Certainly for those modelers of the London scene and the Southern Region Third Rail Electrics, these are an essential set of models. And the sound profile on this is particularly good, with a lot of thoughtful sounds. A big hello to you, it's so great to see you, and I really do hope that you are well. I'm Jenny Kirk, welcoming you up here to Weir Yard, and today we're going to be looking at some of the items that are available in the sales. The reason for this is because there are some great deals out there, and TMC, the Model Centre, very kindly sent over for review the Class 422 from Bachmann. And I must admit that I didn't really know anything about this. Third rail electrics are a little bit out of my wheelhouse, coming as I do from somewhere far up north. They're not something that we see every day up here. I do quite vividly remember one time many years ago driving down to Littlehampton on the south coast and a 4-car electric unit passing on the level crossing in front of me, and I remember at the time remembering it because it was something that was quite unusual for a northerner like me to see, because I didn't get down to the south coast all that often. Fast forward a good number of years and Bachmann brought out their Class 411. This was a 4-coach electric unit that was really very much welcomed by the Southern Region modelers. Certainly it won awards and was amazing value for money when it first came out, but as we all know, manufacturing in China has got a lot more expensive since. But Bachmann have not allowed that to be a barrier, and what I found out is that the Class 422 is the refurbished versions of the Class 411. And during the 1980s, British Railways, when faced with what would have been an incredibly high cost of outright replacing them, elected to put them through a refurbishment process. And this actually resulted in some quite visually obvious differences, and rather than warming over their Class 411 model, Bachmann have actually completely tooled up a lot of the parts for this 4-coach set. And it's quite striking some of the differences actually between the Class 411 and the 422 that we've got here today for review. The reason that TMC have sent this over to the channel for us to take a good close look at is because they've got them in their sales at 50% off for the DCC Ready, or 40% off if you want to treat yourself for that factory fitted sound version. And this review sample actually is the sound fitted version, so we're going to be taking a look at just what you get with that. One of the things that the original Class 411 had was working saloon lights, but you couldn't control them even on DCC, and I'm really interested to see just what Bachmann have done to improve some of the nuts and bolts of this model. What you've got to remember is you get a full train in a box. Think of it more as being a locomotive and 3 coaches, and you can quickly see that when they're in the sales in particular, you do get some good value for money. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at the Bachmann Class 422 4TEP and see just what you get in the box and whether it's worth the money. How does it compare to the original Bachmann Class 411 that was certainly incredibly well received? Well, we're going to be taking a good close look. And we've got some links down below in the description box to help you find both the DCC Ready and the DCC Sound version. So come with me and let's take a close look at what you get in the box. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCC decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support comes from...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model 00 gauge, N, HO or more, We have sought after models from all around the world, with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com and don't miss out on your latest logo.
Third rail electrics is certainly something that for a great many years it's been very under provided for in the ready-to-run market. Now, when you think the sphere of operations of these and the huge population density around London and the south coast, there's certainly a lot of people that would see these things day in, day out, have their daily commutes on them, so there's clearly going to be quite a demand. And for many, many years, it's a bit like what we had with pre-grouping models, where the manufacturers kept saying, oh, well, there's no demand for it. And then when they did dip their toe in the water, they found that there was actually quite a huge demand for it. That's pretty much what happened with the Class 411, and it went through around 5 different releases over the years. Such was the demand for that model. They added to the range the Class 410 and the Class 419 motor luggage van too. So I suppose it was inevitable that they were going to turn their sights on some of the later refurbished models, and that's exactly what they've brought us with the Class 422. And in today's video we're going to be taking a good close look at what you get in the box, given that they are now at around 50% off RRP in the sales. But before we get into that, do please hit that like button, share this video, and consider subscribing to the channel and ringing the notification bell to be the first to know about new videos as we put them out. So let's get on and see what you get in the box.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
I'm continuing today taking a look at some of the models that are available in the sales at what can be quite substantial discounts, and no more so than the Class 422 or 4TEP from Bachmann. And this is a model, I must admit, that I wasn't fully aware of. It does seem to have slipped under the radar. And it was the follow-on, in fact the inevitable follow-on, from the Class 411 4CEP or 4CEP models that Bachmann put out a number of years ago now, and have actually had quite a few different re-releases with different running numbers, and available in plain green, green with yellow warning panels, and blue-grey. Now, this particular one is, I know the box says Class 411, but if we go and have a look at the end of the box here, this actually says Class 482/7 4TEP EMU, number 2703 in BR blue and grey, catalogue number 31-424SF. And if you're wondering, the DCC ready version is the same catalogue number 31-424 without that SF lettering. And I must admit that some of these different brandings do get quite confusing, because I'm under the impression that what's in the box is a Class 422, although the box on the front says Class 411 and on the end says Class 482. But essentially the 4TEP was the refurbished version of the Class 411 of 4CEP, although it did have an unrefurbished buffet car inserted into the formation. So it's all very complicated, but certainly it gives you a lot of variety to your fleet, and effectively can be thought of as an entire train in a box. There's 4 parts that it comes with, and this particular example is the sound-fitted version. Now, the sound-fitted version is available at 40% off RRP at TMC, the Model Centre, and that's at £389.97. But if you want to just go for the standard DCC ready version, that's actually at 50% off the RRP, which is really quite a staggering reduction that we're seeing on some of the items in the sales. And that gives it a sticker price at £274.98. And certainly, yes, that is quite a high price point, but you've got to remember you are getting effectively a full train in a box. Now, these are more than just a reliveried version of the Class 411. They've actually got complete new bodies on. With the 4 parts out of the box, we've got one driving unit, and you'll feel the weight on that. It's substantially heavier. And then we've got the other parts of this 4-car unit. And actually, there's quite a few different tooled parts of this. They're not just duplicates of each other. So I'm going to just quickly put aside the 3 non-motorized parts of this, and we're going to take a look first at the driven end. So this is the part that's got the motor in, and it comes in standard Bachmann packaging. And I'm just going to have a look through some of the paperwork here. Now, you only need one decoder for the entire train, and that is quite helpful. So we've got some information here on fitting some of the extra detailed parts, and also the electrical coupling bars that fit between each unit. Now, these, when they go in, they have electrical contacts, and these must always face upwards. We've also got some information here on the front ends of the actual driving ends, and these do have some different interchangeable parts in there. Looking to the other side, we've got some information about DCC fitting. Now, this is ostensibly exactly the same as with the Class 410 that we recently reviewed, so I'm not going to be doing a DCC fitting on this because this is the sound fitted version and it's the factory sound. But if you want to refer to the Class 410 video, we've got a snippet of that coming up towards the end of this video where there'd normally be the DCC fitting, and you'll just be needing a 21 pin decoder to be able to do that. Now, there should also be some information here with all the CVs and the functions for the different sounds, so we'll keep that handy for when we get this up and running. And I'm actually looking through and just seeing if there's a formation guide. Instead of being on a separate little piece of paper, we've got some information here showing you how to actually wire them up, or at least how to plug them together. Now, these do need to go in a certain order just to make sure that all of the electrics work properly, and this is also the order that they would have run on the full-size railway with as well. So we'll keep that handy too. We've got a standard clamshell packaging. We've got a detail bag in here as well. This has got all of these coupling bars, and you can see there the electrical contacts. And looking at these, we do appear to have, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So they do give you a spare, and because this is a sound fitted model, we've got the blanking plate in there, and then we've got these replacement ends with, instead of the actual number displays, later on these came with these just sort of bars. So we've got the red ones for the rear and the white ones for the front. Now, one of the things you will find with this is that they're not colour correcting. So if you run the unit backwards without changing these, then it will be showing red forwards and white backwards. But we will get into that. So we're going to need that handy as well, because we're going to need those bars for connecting everything up. There is a great deal of weight to this. Now, it drives to one of the bogies, and the other bogie is freewheeling. But they do appear to have pickups on all wheels, and it'd be interesting to see just how well it runs with that. But if you're wondering about the difference between this, the 4TEP, and the original Class 411, well, I've got one of the original Bachmann models here, and you can see instantly one of the most obvious things that happened in the rebuild was that the windows were changed. So you can see we've got gone are these very characteristic Mark I style ventilators across the top. Gone are these orange curtains, and I'm laughing a bit because they do kind of make it look a bit dated, and instead we've got this much sleeker looking design with the drop light at the top that just kind of folds back inwards. We've also got the extra window going on up here, and that's in what I'm guessing would have been the guard's compartment. There's no actual seating in this area, and that's born out of necessity. We've also got a change in the bogies too. So as per the prototype, the Class 4TEP still retains its Mark IV motor bogies at either end. These were where the pickup shoes were on the full-sized set. But we've gone to Commonwealth bogies for the rest of the train. And these would be much more modern, better riding qualities, ease of maintenance, and they have replaced the original style bogies that were on these. And I'm just looking to see if there's any other differences. Well, certainly one of the really good things that Bachmann have done is to actually mark on the underside, and you can see here, if I just move these out from the reflected light, it actually has got DMSO actually stamped on the bottom, and that is a welcome improvement because it's sometimes not the easiest to work out which is which, especially when they've all got jumbled up just a little bit. The rest of the underframe, I'm just looking across there, does look to be the same. We've got all the brake rigging, the trusses, and all of the cabinets. There does seem to be, though, some extra parts appearing down here. Looking to the 4TEP or Class 411, there are holes for these, and I can only assume that these parts were designed in from the outset. So we've got the same chassis, but we've got a slightly differing arrangement of some of those parts. Looking to the front of these, we have got factory fitted all of the high-level jumpers, and certainly I think that the finish on this at the front does look, I slightly prefer the shade of yellow they've got. It's a much brighter shade, and it really does make that extra decoration stand out. So we've got the original release in my left hand, and this version, the Class 422, as it's listed on the website, is in my right hand. And I also quite like that we've got this yellow and black on the corridor connector, whereas with the older one we've got just the black. And I'm looking very close there. It's actually a little bit hard to tell whether that has changed. It does look as though there has been a change in the corridor connector. Yeah, you can see there from the side. So we've got the original one in front, and then we've got the newer version just there behind. And it's, instead of having those concertina, almost baggy material which would have stretched out and formed the connection, we've got this slightly sleeker design. And it's subtle bits like this that make up the difference between the refurbished and unrefurbished models. On the roof as well, we've got a slightly different arrangement on the ventilators. There's some extra parts on the original unrefurbished version which are not present on this bodywork. And if we look at the corridor connection end there, we've got the original on my right, you can see with the steps, and the much sleeker and neater version on my left with the steps removed and just a much smoother finish on those. We've also got, again, accurately, the different corridor connections, and it really does show how much effort has gone into making sure that this is accurate as to the refurbished example with a complete new body shell, plus those other differences that I've shown you there as well. Looking to the other end of the train, this is unmotorised, so we've still got outwardly the same look. We've got the Mark IV motor bogie there, as per the original unrefurbished Class 411, but then we've also got that Commonwealth bogie, slightly different arrangement of underframe detail, and those windows, a very, very obvious change between refurbished and unrefurbished. And again, that really nice, neat other end. And if we just look inside there, we've got the full flooring in there. And actually, yes, it looks like they've got extra seating in these, which was not present. If I just reach across and look to this, we do have that bigger guards compartment. So I'm guessing that they increased the passenger capacity by doing away with some of what was probably underutilized space. Again, the end of the unit really does look good. On these, out of the box, we've got number 14 at one end and the other has number 50. I quite like these, but obviously if you want to, you can change these for those that are in the detail packs. Again, we've got on the underside, very helpfully, the DMSO A, and that just denotes which part of the train this is for when you're working out the formation. The actual couplings here, we've got sprung-loaded self-centering modules, just like on the Mark 1 coaching stock from Bachmann, whereas on the motor bogie end, we have a regular coupling, slimline tension lock in a pocket that is straight onto the bogie, and this is so that you can accurately and easily couple up multiples of these. In practice, they would run as 8-coach or even 12-coach formations, so certainly this is something that it gives you the option to do if you've got 2 or more of these 4-coach units. And I'm guessing at some point during the changeover period, the unrefurbished and refurbished would have run together in trains as they slowly were being sent through works. On the driving ends, the BR double arrow is nice and crisp. We've got the coach number S61386. That Mark IV driving bogie, again, look at that rivet detail and the spring detail. They may have been an older design of bogie, but in model form they really do look superb with that wealth of detail. And you can also see the pickup shoes factory fitted on here on the pickup bar at the side. Looking in the windows, again, we've got those no smoking signs, and these are running along the entirety of the vehicle, and certainly it really does look good. At the ends, really crisp and sharp. It's just little details like that that really do bring this alive. And the front of the unit, look at that. We've got separately applied windscreen wipers, and all of this is separately fitted at the factory. Flush glazing, and it really does look superb. I particularly like that TOPS data panel. And there, confirmed, despite what the box says, it is a class 422/7 4TEP. And it's just the fact that that is legible even at that size really is incredible. We don't have sprung buffers, but to be honest, I'm not too bothered about that. Looking further up, we've got separately applied horns. These feel like they could be metal. They are painted to match the roof colours, but certainly they are very, very robust indeed. And all in all, this is a great offering from Bachmann. I've got the next part out of the box. This handily is printed on it, the TBCK, and this has got a much more Spartan underframe as per the prototype, and it actually shows off this truss work that goes underneath in the brake rigging, which is all there to see, and actually it does stand out. It's well worth having. We've also got those Commonwealth style bogies, and certainly these were some of the most long-lived of the Mark 1 coaching stock, lasting for around 49 years in front row service, surviving into privatisation, and in fact they were only primarily withdrawn, being replaced by things like the Juniper units, simply as part of a drive to remove slam door stock from service. Again, we've got the refurbished windows, a very striking point on these, and turning it round, there's no curtains either, and it's a nice sleek design, almost reminiscent of the Mark IIs rather than the Mark Is. Very much these were a super long-lasting Mark I stock. The roof doesn't feature any of the ribs, and this is something, there was a lot of complaints when Bachmann first introduced their Mark Is that the ribs were far too prominent. Later on, the tooling, as it came up for renewal, they did away with the ribs. Now, the prototypes actually don't have ribs, but what they do have is butt welded panels on the roof. And it's not the ribs that you see, but it's sort of the slight distortion where the welds go. And I'm not decided on whether I prefer completely smooth like this or the earlier ribbed version. Certainly these are probably more accurate, but I do feel that Bachmann kind of went a little bit too far the other way. On these we've got the self-centering mechanism, exactly the same as you'd have on the regular Mark 1 coaches. We've got pickups on all of these. I'm not clear whether these pickups are actually wired through into the body itself. Now, in fact, I'm just going to do that because I know on the original Class 411s and 410 models, whilst the bogies had the pickups, I'm not 100% sure that they were actually wired in and functional. And yeah, the pickups on these intermediate bogies do go somewhere. I can see phosphor bronze sprung pieces in there. So we might actually have a massive improvement in pickup from these. On the originals, whilst the bogies appeared to have pickups, they weren't wired to anything, and that did mean it was a very reliant just on the picking up from one end of the 4 coaches. Taking a close look at some of the printed detail, you can just see the sharpness there on the load 1 ton evenly distributed, guard on that door, the number 1 numeral for the first class area, and you can see here the printing on the windows. It's actually printed on the inside, and I think this is a nice touch because it really does look like the prototypes which would have been stuck to the inside, and it's a little bit of a faux pas I've seen with other releases from various manufacturers, that they've printed these on the outside, but this really does look so much improved for being there on the inside. We've also got separately picked out silver window surrounds. This is really neatly done. The glazing is flush, and we do have that interior in there, although it's still quite a simple interior, and if you're wanting to put passengers in, there isn't a lot of leg room. You may have to remove legs to get everything to fit. The printing down the side really is crisp and sharp. The demarcation between the white banding on the grey, the blue, and that yellow line across the top, although there is just a little bit there where it looks a bit fuzzy at the end. I've also noticed that on this separately fitted metal handrail, which has got a little chip there, but just remember, on your screen right now, this is several times bigger than the model actually is. The individual coach number there, S70344, really crisp and sharp, and I do like that extra detail on these Commonwealth bogies, with certain parts picked out. We've got the yellow for the roller bearing axle box covers, and then we've got additional parts picked out in blue as well. Looking further across, that underframe really is nice. There's a lot of detail here and it really does come out well. And then moving on to the other bogie, everything is crisp and clean. Everything about this is really nicely finished. In the standard class area, we've got the no smoking signs, again printed to the inside, really crisp and clear, and I think that printing on the inside really does work well. Separately applied handrails here either side of the guard's door. The rest of these are moulded detail that's actually really quite crisp, and then finished with another pass of the Tampo print. The final piece of this 4-car puzzle is the buffet car, and it isn't a mistake that this is of the unrefurbished design. In fact, in these 4-car units during the process of the refurbishment, they actually had the unrefurbished buffets marshalled in to substitute for other coaches that were away for being rebuilt. So you can see this quite marked contrast between the refurbished and the unrefurbished, and it really does show on these windows. We've got the older style ventilators that slide apart, and we've also got the curtains in there. As this is a buffet, we've got all the tables. These are all separately finished, and the underframe detail really is quite superb on these. It's completely accurate to the buffet, so we've got what I guess is the gas tank for the gas hobs for actually heating stuff. We've got water tanks, and it's also interesting, I've just got down here, the TRB is actually moulded in on this one rather than printed like on the others. We've got pickups again from all the bogies, and we've got those self-centering couplings. Looking to the end, you can see the difference between these corridor connections. We've still got the steps up to the roof, in contrast to these sleeker lined coaches. And that's at both ends, although I have noticed that on one end of this coach we do still have the steps, but the newer style corridor connections, as opposed to no steps on the other end. These are separately applied metal parts. I do like that printing, really crisp and sharp, and I'm sure that under close magnification that's really going to show up well. Going back to the buffet, we do have the Commonwealth bogies, and these do look to be refurbished bogies. Looking to the rest of the train, they do match. Certainly, it is an interesting coach to have as part of this formation, and certainly you could imagine this with several other 4-car units going up to make quite an impressive train on your layout. Looking really nice and close up on these, you can see there's so much going on. We've got something going on there. I think that might be the electrical connection from the bogie, or is that... No, that is the buffet counter. So it's just a little bit difficult to see through the windows, but we've got a full buffet counter in there. It really is nicely done. And then the corridor down there, which I think the kitchen would be on the other side. Again, we've got moulded handles on these doors, but really crisp. And we don't have that metal silverized surround on the windows in the same way as we have on the refurbished version. So actually these do, but these don't. The tables look good, and I do like the representation of those curtains. I think they're printed to the inside of the glazing, and it really does work well. Again, the coach number there, S69020, really crisp and sharp, as is that white surround of the grey. The blue doesn't actually merge into any of that, there's no fuzziness. And the red stripe for the catering vehicle is crisp with a nice firm demarcation. I don't know what it is about the yellow, but yellow does seem to suffer a bit in the finishing process. And I've seen that before on the yellow ends of locomotives, where it's kind of just struggled to have a nice sharp edge. The TOPS data panel there, I can just about read that is perfectly legible. That is really, really crisp and sharp. It is amazing sense of detail. Another interesting point, whilst the paperwork shows these Buckeye couplings as being a separately fitted item from the detail bag, they are actually factory fitted on this particular release. They are just cosmetic, but it's nice to see that they have been applied from the factory. DCC fitting of the model is remarkably simple. It's exactly the same as if you've already got a Class 411 or a 410 unit, and you might remember that we did the full DCC fit in the review of the Class 410 in Southern Region Green, and you just need to follow the same instructions. You don't particularly need any special tools. The body itself is held on by clips down each side, so if you go looking for screws you just won't find any. And we've had that similar to this on previous models. If you don't have long fingernails, you're just going to need to get yourself something plastic. Don't use a screwdriver because you will damage the finish on the model. And as you can see there, I'm just getting my nail in underneath, and you can start to lever the body away from the chassis. Once you've got your fingernails in there, or your plastic mobile phone opening type tool, then it's just a case of gently teasing the body side apart. If you need to, slip something like business cards in. People always give you business cards. It's a great place to make use of them, slide them up, and you can work your way along the coach. Although I find that if I just then bang my knuckles on the desk with the sides just pulled aside a little bit, you can see we've started getting the body to come out. I'm going to turn it round and again repeat the process at the other end. They can be a little bit stubborn. Once they start to come free, you can work them a lot more readily. This one's proving just a little bit resilient. There, you hear that click, and then the entire body starts to move. Just make sure all the clips are disengaged down the full length. Just work slowly and methodically. And there we go. So looking inside, we've got that lighting bar that runs the full length. This isn't connected by wires. We've just simply got the tabs at one end, which correspond with the tabs up here, which are just hidden away inside the corridor section. We've got our motor here, and you can just see there we've got our blanking plate. And I'm going to actually at this point just use a small jeweler's screwdriver and just place along the edge of that and just ease it one side then the other. You don't want to bend these pins, otherwise you'll make your life a lot harder to get the decoder in. And then I've chosen the 21 pin Trainomatic decoder. I would just make sure that we line up the pins, and it shouldn't need force. It will just slide down with a gentle pressure, and it's as simple as that. If you're wanting to gain access for the speaker to actually fit a speaker, this doesn't come with a factory fitted one. There's just these 3 screws to remove the seating. And then this just lifts out. There we go. And then the speaker itself will just sit making contact with these speaker contacts if you use something like one of the iPhone style speakers or a Sugar Cube speaker, and it should just fit into this recess that is ready made for it into the seating. And it's quite clever actually. They've used that as the resonance chamber. So really clever way of mounting the speaker into there. This is also an ideal opportunity to add any seated passengers that you might wish to, and actually don't have many, but Tramfabriek very kindly sent over some figures, and these are really nicely painted, although you don't have a lot of leg room at all. In fact, it seems too much of a shame to amputate the legs off this. I might just keep this for elsewhere, but this is the ideal opportunity to add passenger figures to your model. And then when you're done, just make sure that we have the front end matching up with the cabs. Drop the body down. You may find it easier just to get the one end in first, and then it's just a case of again carefully manipulating each side until it drops in, and you'll just hear a click and that'll all go into place. We can then take this to the programming track. You only need to put this part of the unit on the programming track. It will function on its own, and we can program that up. You don't have to put all 4 carriages together on that programming track. By default, that decoder will be set to address 3, and we can change that to whatever address suits us. Putting the unit together, we've got this handy diagram at figure 5, and you can see there the method that we use. What I actually find is it's easier to do this off the track and then very carefully lift the full 4-car unit, grasping it, making sure you've got a good grip on both coaches at this point and this point. So to get this put together, what we need to do is just find the powered unit. So I'm just going to go through, and I can feel with the weight difference that that's this one. And then in the packet of parts that comes with it, what I need to do here is get out some of these connectors. These act in much the same way as the solid coupling bars that were sold with the Mark I coaches to be able to make up a fixed rake. And in many ways, the Class 422 should be considered a fixed rake of coaches. Inside the connectors at the end, you can just see the connectors for the electrical pickups at the top. So what we need to be doing is making sure that this is orientated, and just take a quick look at the metal parts, make sure none of these are sitting too proud. This one at this end just looks to be a little bit high in the air, so when we plug this together, it's a standard NEM pocket. You could actually use regular couplings into these if you really wanted to make your train easy to separate, but you would forego the pickups throughout, and the motor bogie would then only be running off its own pickups. Just get that in, and what you may find helpful, we can just see there that the metal prongs are in danger of folding back on themselves. So I'm just going to use a tool to push them down. I like to put a thumb behind the NEM unit and then just keep an eye on that as we try and push them in. I'm going to just squeeze them down and push, and that will go in really quite snugly, and that is important to get a good electrical fit. The next one we want is the TSO, and pay attention to the layout of the doors. That will help you to get these the correct way round for your formation. I think these instructions are the same as for the Class 411. Yes, refurbished Class 411 for SEP. So the TSO TBCK, TBCK is that one. So it looks to be that the TSO has been swapped out on this by the TRB. So we're going to get this plugged in next. And again, it's just a repeat of what we did before. And there we are. You can just feel it click home. And now these two are nice and secure. And we just repeat that through the full train. When it comes to the factory fitted sound profile, there's some really great choice of sounds on this. But you have to remember that EMUs and electric locomotives in general do tend to be a lot quieter than their diesel and steam counterparts. So when the train is running, be aware that the wheel noise may well start to drown out some of these sounds. I'm going to run you through some of the different sounds that are on the decoder by having the unit stationary on the track. There's only a speaker in one end. The motor-driven car has the speaker and sound decoder in, so you won't get sound from the other end of the train. So do also bear that in mind. One of the improvements that I do like about this Class 422 over the Class 411 that it's derived from is that the interiors do seem to be particularly well rendered, and the interior saloon lighting is now independently controlled on F11 for the factory sound fitted version, or you'll find this on one of the other function keys if you decide to just do a standard DCC fit. Starting off, I'm going to turn the lights on and the full loco sounds on F1, and then play through some of the spot sounds. You should also be aware that some of the spot sounds will automatically play as part of the F1 function. So we turn now to the scores, and first up is build quality. And by and large, actually, this model is really well put together. There was no detail parts that came off, and unlike some of the earlier third rail electrics from Bachmann, they do seem to have made sure that the underframe detail stays where it needs to be, and none of the separately applied boxes or cabinets came loose during all of the handling. And that's important because once you've got this unit all connected together, you're pretty much stuck with a 4-car unit that can be a little bit on the unwieldy side, and certainly having the detail stay put is helpful when you're having to do a lot of manual handling. The only areas where I felt that the build quality wasn't quite up to the maximum standard was on the front end of the units with the corridor connectors, and it did seem to have just a little bit of a panel gap on at least one end of this unit where the corridor connector wasn't quite fitting all the way back. But it's a minor gripe, and certainly I had to go looking for that. So I'm going to give this a 9.7. On running quality, the model did perform really well. If you go for the standard DCC ready version, then it will be pretty responsive out of the box on both DC, or if you do a standard DCC fit using something like the Trainomatic 21-pin decoder. The factory fitted option is all set up for this model and gives some really great momentum, whereby the model accelerates just like the prototype, as well as being a little bit slower to decelerate, just like a real train that has a great deal of mass. The F2 key can be used as a toggleable brake, and it does make great fun driving this unit and getting it to stop at stations, and you do get a good deal of control, but it takes a bit of practice to do. So I'm going to give this a 9.7. On DCC fitting and innovation, certainly these models really do seem to be an improvement over what was already a great Class 411 model. The full bodies of each of the coaches is retooled from what we've seen before, with the exception of the buffet car, but this is as per the prototype. This is not just a warmed over and re-liveried previous model, but there is a lot of completely new tooling in this, and this particularly shows with the body sides and particularly those windows, which are markedly different from the unrebuilt versions. What I really like about this is the interiors. These really are something to behold, and I can imagine a great deal of fun could be had populating this unit with sitting passengers and slowly filling it up. The saloon lighting is much improved over the Class 411. Certainly the first releases of these that I have, you can't separately control that saloon lighting even on DCC, and this is a marked improvement, giving full control over the entirety of the lighting, and that lighting works well to show up that really great interior. One area though where the saloon lighting does let the model down is when it comes to the DCC decoder. This is actually quite visible through the lighting on the inside on the saloon. It shows it up. The fact that it doesn't have any kind of a cover on it. And I don't know whether this is peculiar to the model that I was sent for review or whether this is on all of them, but it is an area where Bachmann might think to improve. Another area for improvement are the method of connecting all of these coaches together. It did work well when it was first introduced for the Class 411, but that's quite a few years ago, and since then Bachmann have developed a much better system which they've used on their Class 117, and it is a shame that they've not retrofitted this model, as certainly those much easier to deal with connectors would be so much better for this particular unit. It might also have allowed an extra speaker to have been fitted in the other end of the unit, and with the factory fitted decoder option, certainly it is a little bit noticeable that the sound is only coming out of one end, but they are just little niggles, and I'm going to give this still a 9.0. On accuracy and quality of finish, certainly this is a really nicely finished model. The demarcation between the colours on the blue, the grey and the white banding really is crisp and sharp. I particularly like the jumper cables on the fronts of the cab, and these are really nicely finished with a lot of separately finished paintwork, and being factory fitted, this really does go a long way to help the enthusiast. I also like the fact that the representations of the Buckeye couplings are factory fitted on this model. I can remember previously having to fit these on my Class 411, and this was a little bit of a fiddly job. As they don't impinge on the couplings, it is definitely a good idea to have these fitted in the factory. On the yellow banding to denote the top of the first class area, there did seem to be a slight fuzziness to the end. I don't know what it is about applying the yellow on some of these models. I've seen it so many times where there just doesn't seem to be quite that sharpness that we get with the other colours, and that is visible on some areas of this model. So I'm going to give this a 9.8. Noting that the interior is also nicely finished with a lot of separately printed parts, which really does make this come alive without needing to have any additional paintwork done by the owner. On value for money, well, at the moment this is in the sale, and this review sample has been loaned by TMC, the Model Centre, who currently have them at 50% off the RRP at £274.98 for the DCC ready version. That might seem still quite expensive, but you're getting a full train in that box. Imagine it as locomotive and 3 coaches, and it very quickly shows the value for money that you're getting out of this. Certainly for those modelers of the London scene and the Southern Region Third Rail Electrics, these are an essential set of models, and along with the other models available from Bachmann, you can very quickly build up an authentic layout with plenty of this suburban commuter goodness. When it comes to the factory fitted sound option, we've got 40% off at TMC at £389.97. That's still a good price for a factory sound fitted locomotive and 3 coaches, which is probably the best way to think of this unit. And the sound profile on this is particularly good, with a lot of thoughtful sounds, and I really do like the fact that there's a kind of echo after sounds finish, so they don't feel like they're cutting off abruptly. So all in all, I'm going to give this an 8.0 out of 10, with the caveat that in the sales these really are a price not to be missed. Overall, I'm coming to really quite like these Southern Region Third Rail Electrics. It wasn't something that was really on my radar a number of years ago, and it all started when I picked up a Class 411 second hand for an incredibly good price. Prices may have moved up since then, but certainly in the TMC sale that these are in, the prices are really quite favourable for what you get in the current market. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative, and we've got that link down below that takes you to TMC, the Model Centre, where you can find these models at up to 50% off the RRP, and it's always worth having a look around. I think they do have some of the other liveries as well available in their sale. If you want to have it customised with a light weathering, then they also offer that service too, so tick the box when you order it. And a big thank you to TMC for very kindly sending over a review sample for us to be able to take a good close look at the Bachmann Class 422. But what do you think about it? Are these models that you've got on your layout, and how do you find them? What do you think about what you get in the box? Are you somebody who's maybe spent many years commuting to and from work on these? And how do they match up to your memories of the real thing? I'd love to hear from you. Do leave a comment down below in the comments section, and it's a great way to share your knowledge and experience with your fellow modeler. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying don't forget to check out the merch store. We've got a link down below with all of the unique and exclusive merchandise that's available through the channel. Look out, because we will be having some pin badges coming at some point in the near future. And I know quite a few of you have been asking about those. You can also head on over to Patreon and help support the channel with the link that's down below, and that helps us to keep making the videos that you want to see. Or you could become a channel member as well, and it's all a great way to help us keep putting out the content that you love. So a huge thank you to everybody who's done that, and please like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Take care, happy modelling. Today's video comes in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabriek.co.uk. Additional support is provided by...
This is Clark Railworks, and this is what we do. You'll know us from Ellis Clark Trains, and you'll get the same friendly expertise with us too. We've got a huge range of pre-owned model railways from all your favourite manufacturers, and maybe some you hadn't heard of before. It's the place to come for quality. We don't stock substandard models, and everything we sell is fully tested and photographed by model railway experts. No matter whether you model double O gauge, N, HO or more, we have sought after models from all around the world with new listings added every weekday. Check out what's available now at clarkrailworks.com, and don't miss out on your latest logo.
I'd like to thank everybody over on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to our Patreon heroes. Without you guys over on Patreon, we really wouldn't be able to keep making the video content that you see on this channel. And don't forget that you can also head on over to patreon.com/JenniferKirk and check out the different tiers of rewards. Thank you so much. You are absolute legends.